Good morning, Baltimore. That is so stupid. Today's video has to be super quick because I'm coming out of a 2-week bender and I have no food and I need to eat. So this one is gonna be fast. Today's video, I just wanted to talk about how the creative journey is not for the faint of heart. And I also wanted to give my review of the Wicked movie, and I think the two are intrinsically linked. So like I said at the start of this video, I just came out of a 2-week bender. It's not an actual bender. I don't drink alcohol like that. The only drug I do is weed. The reason I mention that is because this is something that I have gone through my whole life. Not smoking weed, but going through these cycles where I sort of have to break down everything that I've been doing up until that point. I believe that is part of my journey as a creative. And I think that is also true for all creatives. What I mean is, if you are somebody who is looking to create what was never there before, if you are somebody who is looking to change the reality around you, your spirit is having to challenge the status quo of the material world. That is a hard thing to do. Whenever you are engaged in the process of trying to absorb everything around you, synthesize it, then put out some kind of creation that can speak to all that is, while also changing it through the sheer power of its own being. That is a hard thing to do. And if you followed me throughout that whole sentence, you might be a creative. No, just the point that I'm trying to make is, in the past 2 weeks, I've wake and baked every single day. I have just totally abandoned all of my responsibilities. I stopped doing yoga. I stopped meditating. Now, a big part of this for me on my personal journey is that I struggle with knowing how to rest. I have such big ambitions. I have such big dreams and visions for myself that I can feel insufficient in who I just am as a person, independent of all of my action, my hard work. I can feel insufficient as a person if I'm not always doing something to further my progress toward those goals. If I'm not every single second trying to make my creative vision a reality, I suffer. As a result, I find that the universe, God, the ultimate spirit, whatever you want to call it, sometimes forces me to slow down. It forces me to say, okay, my job, the students that I guide and counsel, my relationships, my physical practice, all of it, put it to the side. You need to be dissolute. That is the word that I keep coming back to whenever I'm in one of these periods. I have to become dissolute. What I mean is, I sort of have to dissolve my very sense of self in order for the old lessons to really take root and to clear out space for the new lessons to come in. Don't get me wrong, I love these periods in life. As difficult as it is for me to learn how to relax and to just be myself, it is equally enjoyable whenever I'm forced into a period where I have to drop everything. In some ways, it really reminds me of whenever I was a kid and I was just trying to survive my family environment, and I had to find the things, the coping mechanisms that would keep me safe. A lot of it was laying in bed, doing nothing, being on my cellular device. That is not particularly something I want to do every day for the rest of my life. As a creative, I don't think that is something I will do every day for the rest of my life, but I know those periods will come. If you are a creative out there, just know, if you are in a slump, you're in a slouch, you're being dissolute, don't take it as a sign that you are on the wrong path. If anything, it's a sign that you are on the right path and something new is coming in. This is why journaling is so important. I have kept many, I would say dozens of journals at this point, and I still do. I don't really do this myself, but if you are a particularly ungrounded person in the passage of time, it's hard for you to remember that there is a future that's coming and a past that's behind you, and things don't always stay the same. Journaling can be very helpful for getting you out of what you perceive as a negative place. Very often it can remind you, I'm actually not in a bad place at all. I'm doing what I need to be doing. It's a strange beast, creativity. Why it requires us to break down everything we know, I have no clue. But it does. You probably have seen this in your own life. Peaks and valleys, some say. Apprenticeship, mastery, others say. When you are at the top of a peak, or you are at the bottom of a valley, you need to accept that the pivot, the turn, in order to start climbing again, or in order to start descending towards your next challenge. In order for that pivot to happen successfully, you have to leave behind everything you encountered, and you have to forego all that you speculate is in front of you. That is really, for me, the lesson that I continually learn whenever I'm forced into these periods of rest. You're not bad, Andrew, the universe says. You're not lazy. You're not foolish. You're not insufficient. You are good enough, even when you're not doing things that will help you achieve your ultimate goals. And there's sort of an irony to it, too. In order to achieve one's vision, in order to create the reality one sees in their mind's eye, they have to relinquish that vision. What a paradox. And that is one of the beautiful things about creativity. In order for the vision, this manifold, nascent entity unto its own, in order for that thing to come to life, you have to abandon the striving, the intense creative energy that you pump into it. Sometimes you just have to step back and let it be. What I'm talking about is an art project or a book a movie. And if you are afraid that the vision will perish, pass away, not come to fruition, because you're not always on top of it, you are misunderstanding the fundamental element of the creative act. To breathe life into something is not about chipping away at the marble block until this creature emerges fully grown. That's not the case at all. You really have to move by intuition, by paradox. And when the time comes to step back, you have to acknowledge it. It used to be very difficult for me to acknowledge when it was time to rest, when it was time to let the old self fall away. And I'm still not crazy about these rest periods that I go through. I'm not crazy about smoking as much weed as I do. I don't think it's good for a person's health. Nor do I like going through periods where I push my friends away. At the same time, sometimes these periods are necessary in order for me to understand how valuable my health is, in order to understand how valuable my friends are. And the real fact of the matter is, whenever I'm making these videos, yes, would I love if they blew up on the internet or whatever? Sure. But really the point of doing this is to speak with the audience, quote unquote, that I have for my book and my art. And right now, that audience is my friends. And I love my friends very dearly. I don't think I'm always the best friend. In fact, I think I'm very frequently not a very good friend. And this rest period has showed me that these past 2 weeks. And I also think that in order for you to have healthy relationships at all, you do have to accept this stepping back period. The point that I'm trying to make is, whether you are a creative or not, though it's especially important if you are a creative, sometimes you gotta let it go. That can be particularly difficult for creatives. And it's not even that you have to let things go. It's not even that you have to say, okay, fuck this art project, fuck this book, fuck the movie, I don't want to participate in this, I don't want to participate in life, in capitalism, I'm going to withdraw, become a hermit, all of that stuff. Whenever you're saying these kinds of things, or if you're, whenever you're faced with a period of this attitude, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There's a line from Angels in America by Tony Kushner. Don't be afraid. People are so afraid. Don't be afraid to stand in the raw wind, naked, alone. And I think about the Wicked movie. Don't be afraid. I'm not. It's the wizard who should be afraid of me. It's coming to me right now that Elphaba's journey, as we've all seen now on the big screen, might not be the exact same thing as the creative's journey. But you can see that when Elphaba is faced with the breakdown of everything she thought she was, she could be, at the end of Act 1, that is when the poetry that everybody remembers about Wicked happens. That beautiful song, that amazing sequence that is grander than life and still somehow touches our inmost, smallest part. I think that whatever they did with the Wicked movie was going to be, this is in part my review. So many people have played these characters, so many people are familiar with the musical. The movie was awesome. the lesson remains that you need to let things be. I think I said let it go earlier in this video. No. When you let things break down, when you let things dissolve, when you aren't forcing, but you're letting be, that's when magic happens. It's very important to me that people internalize that lesson, not only because it is helpful for everybody, creative or not, in their individual life journey, but also because if everybody adopted this mindset of letting be, admitting the breakdown into their lives, becoming dissolute, not holding on to what we think as right or safe or familiar, and sometimes doing things that we think are not familiar or not safe or not right, that's when the good stuff comes in. You can take my word for it, or you cannot, and just find out what works for you in your life. That is everything from me for today. Go see the Wicked movie. Go to my website and read some of the poems from my son. This is just the beginning. When my book comes out, when I start my tour, when my audience grows from these beautiful people who are watching this video already into the hundreds of thousands, if not the millions of people nationwide, it won't just be a celebration of my work, it will be a celebration of life, of creativity itself. Again, you could take my word for it, or you could just stick around long enough to find out. I will always love you. See you next week. Cool.